Hello, my darlings. Mother Raven here with another glorious Folklore Thursday. Today we'll be revisiting Sabine Baring-Gould and his werewolves with lycanthropy among the ancients. What is lycanthropy? The change of man or woman into the form of a wolf, either through magical means, so as to enable him or her to gratify the taste for human flesh, or through judgment of the gods in punishment for some great offense. This is the popular definition. Truly it consists in a form of madness such as may be found in most asylums. Among the ancients, this kind of insanity went by the name of lycanthropy, kuanthropy, or boanthropy, because those afflicted with it believed themselves to be turned into wolves, dogs, or cows. But in the north of Europe, as we shall see, the shape of the bear, and in Africa that of a hyena, were often selected in preference, a mere matter of taste. According to Marcellus Sidetes, of whose poem a fragment exists, men are attacked with this madness chiefly in the beginning of the year, and become most furious in February, retiring for the night to lone cemeteries and living precisely in the manner of dogs and wolves. Herodotus says it seems that the Neru are sorcerers, if one is to believe the Scythians and the Greeks established in Scythia, for each Nerian changes himself once in the year into the form of a wolf, and he continues in that form for several days, after which he resumes his former shape. Also see Pomponius Mela. There is a fixed time for each Nerian at which they change, if they like, into wolves and back again into their former condition. But the most remarkable story among the ancients is that related by Ovid in his Metamorphoses, of Lycon, king of Arcadia, who, entering Jupiter one day, set before him a hash of human flesh, to prove his omniscience, whereupon the god transferred him into a wolf. Quote, in vain he attempted to speak. From that very instant his jaw was bespluttered with foam, and only he thirsted for blood as he raged among flocks and panted for slaughter. His vesture was changed into hair, and his limbs became crooked. A wolf, yet he retained large trace of his ancient expression. Hoary he is as afore, his countenance rabid, his eyes glitter savagely still, the picture of fury. Pliny relates from Evanthe that on the festival of Jupiter Lycanus, one of the family of Antaeus was selected by lot, and conducted to the brink of the Arcadian lake. He then hung his clothes on a tree and plunged into the water, whereupon he was transformed into a wolf. 9 years after, if he had not tasted human flesh, he was at liberty to swim back and resume his former shape, which had in the meantime become aged, as though he had worn it for 9 years. Agrippus relates that Dementius, having assisted at an Arcadian human sacrifice to Jupiter, Lycanus ate of the flesh, and was at once transformed into a wolf, in which shape he prowled about for 10 years, after which he recovered his human form, and took part in the Olympic Games. The following is a story from Petronius. My master had gone to Capua to sell some old clothes. I seized the opportunity and persuaded our guest to bear me company about 5 miles out of town, for he was a soldier, and as bold as death, We set out about cockcrow, and the moon shone bright as day, when, coming among some monuments, my man began to converse with the stars, whilst I jogged along singing and counting them. Presently I looked back after him, and saw him strip and lay his clothes by the side of the road. My heart was in my mouth in an instant. I stood like a corpse, when, in a crack, he was turned into a wolf. Do not think I'm joking. I would not tell you a lie for the finest fortune in the world. But to continue, after he was turned into a wolf, he set up a howl and made straight for the woods. At first I did not know whether I was on my head or heels, but at last, going to take up his clothes, I found them turned into stone. The sweat streamed from me, and I never expected to get over it. Melissa began to wonder why I walked so late. "Had you come a little sooner," she said, "you might have at least lent us a hand, for a wolf broke into the farm and had butchered all our cattle. But though we got off, it was no laughing matter for him, for a servant of ours ran him through with a pike." Hearing this, I could not but close an eye. But as soon as it was daylight, I ran home like a peddler that had been eased off his pack. Coming to the place where the clothes had been turned into stone, I saw nothing but a pool of blood, and when I got home, I found my soldier lying in bed, like an oxen stall, and a surgeon dressing his neck. I saw at once that he was a fellow who could change his skin, versipulous, and never after could I eat bread with him. No, not if you would have killed me. Those who would have taken a different view of this case are welcome to their opinion. If I tell you a lie, may your genie confound me. As everyone knows, Jupiter changed himself into a bull. Hecuba became a bitch, Actaeon a stag. The comrades of Ulysses were transformed into swine, and the daughters of Proteus fled through the fields, believing themselves to be cows, and would not allow anyone to come near them, lest they should be caught and yoked. S. Augustine declared, in his De Civitate Dei, that he knew an old woman who was said to turn men into asses by her enchantments. Apuleius has left us his charming romance of the Golden Ass, in which the hero, through injudicious use of a magical salve, is transformed into that long-eared animal. It is to be observed that the chief seat of lycanthropy was Arcadia, and it has been very plausibly suggested that the cause might be traced to the following circumstances. The natives were pastoral people, and would consequently suffer very severely from attacks and depredations of wolves. They would naturally institute a sacrifice to obtain deliverance from this pest and security for their flock. This sacrifice consisted in the offering of a child, and it was instituted by Lycaon. From the circumstances of the sacrifice being human, and from the peculiarity of the name of its originator, rose the myth. But, on the other hand, the story is far too widely spread for us to attribute it to an accidental origin, or to trace it to a local source. Half the world believes, or believed in, werewolves, and they were supposed to haunt the Norwegian forests by those who had never remotely been in contact with Arcadia. And the superstition had probably stuck deep its roots into the Scandinavian and Teutonic minds ages before Lycaon existed, and we have only to glance at the Oriental literature to see it as firmly engrafted in the imagination of the Easterners. That's the end of chapter 2. And I don't know if you've noticed with the modern trends of monsters, those most likable and interested in these days. That the lycanthropy that was mentioned here was often brought on by cannibalism, which leads me to think very firmly of the Wendigo. Well, I think I have slaughtered enough ancient languages for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. There were many who really like this book, and so I thought I had better return to it. So quoth this raven.